Long, long ago, in the village of Ogidiane, a village not too far from the expressway, where motorcycles fumed louder than crickets, and old women still swept their compounds with short brooms made from palm fronds, there lived a woman called Olama. Olama was the kind of mother you would greet with bent knees and still feel unsure whether she would answer you with a smile. Skin the color of burnt clay, and a voice that could quiet a full gathering. Olama was respected, but inside her own compound, her love did not stretch wide. It was narrow, and it only moved in one direction. Olama was not an ordinary woman. People feared her more than they respected her. She was the kind of woman who walked like she knew the earth belonged to her, and maybe it did in a way. Her wrapper was always tightly tied, her scarf stiff and high, and her eyes, those eyes, always scanning, always judging, not with words, but with a certain coldness, a way of looking at you that made you question your existence. She worked as a cleaner at the community health center, married to Ikenwe, a keke driver. They had two children. The first, a girl named Zilora, slim, fair-skinned, with a beauty that came from stillness. Zilora came first on a Monday morning just after a long rain. They say the sky was still weeping when her first cry came, soft like a flute carried by the breeze. But even then, Olama did not smile. She held her daughter the way one holds an item they did not order. No joy. 3 years later, when Kasemobi was born, the second, a boy, darker, shorter, full of noise and pride, even as a child. He cried until the nurse begged him to rest. When they got home, the compound turned into a festival ground. Goats were slaughtered, people danced, there was music, food, and praise. And from that moment, Zilora became the background. She was the shadow that followed the family, not to be noticed, only to serve. Zilora grew up learning things most girls her age didn't. She knew how to start a fire with half-dead matches. She knew how to beat a baby with cold stream water and still keep him from crying. She knew how to keep quiet even when her nails were bleeding from hours of scrubbing cemented verandas. And her mother, Olama, never once said, "Well done." Never once asked, "Are you tired?" Even when Zilora fell sick, she would say, "You are just pretending, lazy girl." But when Casimiri sneezed once, she would rush to boil herbs and call neighbors. He was pampered, doted on, spoiled to the bone. The boy would fight with neighbors' children, destroy other people's property, even shout at elders. But his mother would laugh and say, "He is just strong. He's a lion like his father." And what of Zilora? If she even raised her voice, Olama would slap her across the face and hiss, "Lower that tone! You want to disgrace me?" The people in the village began to talk. One old woman, Mama Ndulwe, once said while peeling cassava in her mud kitchen, "Zilora no look like Olama at all. That woman no treat her like her own. I'm not sure say na her born that girl." Even children noticed. They would tease, "Zeno, are you a house girl or their sister?" Zilora, tall, quiet, always helping, was treated like a stranger in her mother's house. Cassiopnebi, on the other hand, was treated like a king. When Zilora swept the compound and fetched water from the borehole, Olama would say, "Better sweep that place well before I come out." But when Cassiopnebi came back from playing ball, shirt torn, feet dusty, Olama would laugh. "My son, Nam, you are becoming a man." Zilora noticed, so did the neighbors. Unfortunately, their father was barely around or too weak to face Olama. Not too long, the tragedy came. The year Zilora turned 13, their father, Ikenwe, a gentle keke driver, had keke accident on his way from Onitsha. The news came like harmattan wind, fast, dry and painful. The news came at dusk. By morning, his body was wrapped in white cloth, resting in a wooden box in the parlor. He was later buried. That day, Olama cried the loudest, but her tears Zilora knew were for herself, not her husband. Barely 6 months later, Olama married again, a man from the next village, Oganya. He came with one Ghana must go back, a face full of pride, dark skin, broad-chested, smelled of tobacco and sweat. He didn't like children, especially not girls who looked him in the eye. He brought nothing into the home, not food, not joy, only rules. From that day, Zilora's name in that house became You This Girl. Oganya didn't touch her, but his presence alone was punishment. The way he would stare at her like she was an inconvenience, the way he would complain about her food, her walking style, her voice. And Olama, she stood by him like a wall. She is not grateful, she would say. I give her food, I give her shelter. What else does she want? She woke first, slept last, cooked, cleaned, fetched water, and served food. Oganya, he would sit with less cross, calling for palm wine and ogbono soup like a village chief. And Kasebobi, he had become untouchable. He never did chores. He never got scolded. He would walk in and out of the house anyhow, sagging trousers, loud voice, smelling of street pepper soup. Silora once asked him to help wash plates. He laughed in her face and said, Are you mad? Me? Wash plates? I'm a man and I'm not your mate. Even though you are older, you are a woman and you should do everything. And Oloma, she nodded in agreement. My son, leave her. She just likes trouble. Kasemobi, now a teenager, had become untouchable. He would go out in the morning, come back at midnight, drunk, smelling of dry gin and smoke. If he spoke to Zulora at all, it was to insult her. House girl, he would say, you dey form like you fine, who you be? Life in Ogidiane settled into a routine for Zulora, a bitter, silent routine. Each morning, she woke up before the cock crowed. The air was still wet with dew, and the compound was dark. She would tie her wrapper tight around her chest, feel for the broom by the kitchen wall, and begin sweeping. Sand, leaves, small sticks, goat droppings. She swept and watched the stars fade. After that, she would enter the backyard to light the firewood and begin boiling water. If the smoke entered her eyes, she didn't cry. She had cried enough in the past. When Olama woke up, she expected tea. When Oganya got up, he expected hot yam and red oil. Kasemobi, he rarely rose before noon, but his food had to be ready, fresh, hot, and plated because he is a man. Zinora never ate before everyone else. Sometimes she would lick the pot of the last soup and drink water. Other times, she would chew on leftover crumbs or drink garri with no sugar before going to bed. The years passed like that, but deep inside her, something refused to die. She started doing small jobs in secret. On weekends, while her mother and Oganya slept, she would sneak to the market square. There, she helped Mamozo at her store. At first, it was just carrying bags, then arranging goods, then counting stock. Mamozo, I can help you every Saturday, she whispered one day. The old woman nodded, chewing her kola nut. So long as you no fear the sun, you go in. She gave Zilora 200 naira every market day. It was small, but Zilora saved it. She kept it in a black nylon bag, tied 3 times, hidden inside the torn foam of her old mattress. Whenever she got 200, she would smile quietly and whisper, It's something. Then she added other hustles. She helped one tailor in the village iron clothes. She fetched water for old women during dry season, 100 naira per drum. She cleaned a teacher's house every Wednesday afternoon, 100 naira once a week. During harvest, she peeled cassava for Mama Chikwado. Her palms became rough, her feet hardened, but her spirit sharpened. People started to whisper again, but this time, differently. Tilora no lazy o. Dat girl get sense pass her age. Na she suppose go school, not that her brother when dey chase girls. But Olama, she didn't notice. Or maybe she noticed but pretended not to. She was too busy feeding Oganya's pride and shielding Cassie Mosby's laziness. Then came one dry season, the kind when even the lizards looked tasty. Laura sat under the mango tree in the village square, holding her small nylon bag of savings. It was not much, about 9,200 days of sweat, hidden coins, rice money she refused to eat, festival clothes she never bought. She met one of the teachers from the secondary school, Mr. Iloka, her favorite teacher back then. Sir, she said softly, I want to leave the village. I want to go to Oka. Do you know anybody there that can help me get housemaid work? The man looked at her. His face was unsure, but her eyes were firm. You sure? He asked. Will you survive? I've been surviving, sir, just not with salary. Okay then. He gave her a number, an old woman in Oka who ran a boarding house and sometimes sent girls to help in homes. Laura packed her bag, one old wrapper, 3 dresses, a skirt, and 2 tops. She didn't tell Olama. She only wrote a note. Mama, I am going to look for a life. I'm not angry. I just want to breathe. She left at dawn. She took a motorcycle to the junction, then climbed inside an old rattling Hiace box. Her seat had a metal bar poking her back. The conductor shouted more than he called. The windows wouldn't close properly, and red dust painted her skin like it had been waiting. But Zilora didn't complain. She held her back tight. She looked out at the trees. She told herself, this is not escape. This is rising. The bus to Oka groaned like an old man climbing a hill. Every pothole slapped Zilora's back. Every brake shook her bones. The driver kept throwing something bitter and spitting out of the window. The woman beside her was dozing off and waking up every 5 minutes to hiss at nothing. But Zilora, she didn't move. She held her black nylon bag tightly on her lap, afraid to sleep, afraid to lose the little she had. Inside it, 9,200. After she had paid her transport, she had about 8,500 left, one small Bible, and a folded note with a woman's name written in pencil. Madam Oge, 36 Ezioku Street, Aroma Junction. When they entered Oka, it was just after 6 p.m. The sky was orange, like palm wine spread across the clouds. Streetlights blinked, buses screamed, boys rushed wheelbarrows, shouting, water, water, from one junction to the other. She had never seen so many people walking fast. Her slippers were dusty, her dress were dusty as well. Her mouth was dry, but her legs moved. She asked Okada riders one after the other until she found someone who knew where Ezioku Street was. It took her there for 150 naira. The compound was big, 5 houses in one fence, lines of clothes flapping in the breeze, smell of beans cooking somewhere, loud music from one corner, a woman shouting at her child in Igbo. Zilora stood there unsure. Then a tall woman with huge backside and big gold earrings stepped out. Who you define? She asked, eyes sharp like she had already suspected trouble. Good evening, ma. Please, I am looking for Madam Oge. I was given this address. I'm from Okidiani. The woman eyed her from head to toe. You be house girl? Laura nodded, her voice low. I define work, ma. The woman sighed. Come in. That was how it started. Madam Oge gave her food, small rice and stew with a piece of meat, and a space on the floor to sleep that night. The next day, she was sent to her first job, a banker's home in Udoka Estate. Husband, wife, 2 children. Zilora's job, sweep, wash plates, bathe the children, boil water, iron clothes, carry the baby, and stay out of trouble. She was paid 10,000 monthly. No day off, no visiting friends, no phone. But they fed her, gave her a wrapper in case of cold, and one oversized t-shirt, called her Z. She worked there for 6 months. The children liked her. Their mother ignored her most times, but the husband, he smiled too much. Then one night, he came back drunk, touched her back in the corridor, whispered something ugly. She froze. The next day, she begged Madame Oge to move her. "I no go wait make something spoil," she said. Madame Oge believed her, sent her to a new family. A widow with a teenage boy, big house, quiet. That was where she breathed again. The woman was firm but kind, paid her 15,000, gave her allowance, let her rest on Sundays. She started saving again. Every 1,000 she would tie in a nylon and keep under the foam. Sometimes she cried at night on her mat, not because of pain, but because her body remembered things her heart tried to forget. Olama's voice, Oganya's insults, Kasemobi's mockery, but she would wipe her eyes and whisper, one day, while doing her chores, a man in a striped shirt walked past. He smiled, greeted, walked on. He had come to drop something with Mrs. Ononuju. The next Sunday, he came again, and that was how she met Ifeade. She had just finished sweeping the front corridor of Madame Ononuju's house, the widow who had taken her in after that near incident at the banker's place. Madame had gone to the women's meeting in church, and her son, Somadina, was still sleeping after playing game all night. The air smelled of fried pepper and sunlight. A good kind of tiredness sat in Zilora's bone. A young man, about 28 or so, wearing a striped shirt and clean jeans. He had a file in his hand and walked with purpose, not the noisy kind, but the one that says, "I know where I'm going, even if I'm tired." As he passed, he glanced her way, not with disrespect, not with hunger most men carried in their eyes when they saw housemates, just a soft, brief, honest look. He nodded slightly. "Good afternoon," Zilora replied. "Good afternoon, sir," and quickly looked away. She was used to men either ignoring her or saying too much. This one was different. He kept coming every Sunday afternoon. Sometimes he would drop packages with Madame Ononuju. Sometimes he helped fix small things around the compound, tightening a loose bulb, helping the plumber that came late. He greeted her each time, short, polite, calm. It was one Tuesday 3 weeks later that he spoke more than a greeting. She was washing clothes at the tap behind the kitchen. "Your hands must pain you with all that soap," he said. She looked up, surprised. He was holding a nylon bag of bread and oranges. "A bit," she said, rinsing the wrapper she was washing, "but I'm used to it." Still, he hesitated, then opened the bag and offered her one orange. "This one is sweet. I bought extra by mistake." She looked at it, paused, then wiped her hands and took it slowly. "Thank you, sir. Ifeadi," he said. Zilora, they left it there. No numbers, no promises, just orange juice on her tongue and a small warmth she carried into the night. Over the next few months, they spoke more. Never long conversations, just questions that grew longer over time. "What's your favorite food? How did you end up in Oka? Do you write? You speak like someone who thinks a lot." She found out he was a small-scale supplier. He sold electronics of all kinds to schools and companies. It wasn't big money, but it was honest money. He started with about 50,000 from a cousin in Enugu. He used his legs more than his phone, knocking on gates, entering offices, begging for a chance. "I'm not rich," he told her one day, "but I'm building something." That word, building, stayed with her. He never asked to touch her, never asked to visit her at night. He never joked about her job or called her a maid. He treated her like someone who mattered. And so, when he said one evening, while they sat outside under the mango tree near the compound, "Zilo, I want you beside me, not behind me," she didn't know what to say. She went inside, slept, prayed, then said yes. 2 weeks later, that was how their beginning started. Their beginning was not flashy. They didn't do a big wedding, just prayers, few family, and 5 guests under a canopy. They moved into a one-bedroom flat. She stopped housemaid work and joined him in the business, helping him with customer records, keeping track of orders, learning how to price things. They worked from home, no signboard, no staff, just hustle. She would call schools from her old Nokia touchlight phone. He would deliver printers on his back using public buses. Sometimes customers would delay payment. Sometimes the supplier would disappoint. They fought, they cried, they encouraged each other, they saved. They bought a second-hand laptop, then a printer, then rented a small shop near Unizik Junction. Zilora learned how to type, learned Excel. She taught herself after work at night, copying from a neighbor's textbook. She added printing services. Before long, Zifet Technologies was born, a combination of their names. They registered it properly, opened a business account, hired a boy to help with deliveries. Year by year, it grew. And one day, while sitting in their shop counting 100 bundles of cards, he looked at her and said, Zilora, we are doing it. She smiled. Yes, but we are not done. They bought a car, then land, built a small house. Bigger contracts started coming. Schools in Anambra, offices in Asaba, even government jobs in Oka. They employed staff. They lived a very comfortable life, but they never forgot where they started from. Every December, they sent donations to orphanages, sponsored girls in secondary school. They were particular about the growth of young people, especially girls in acquiring skills. Silora never went back home. They say when a person who once walked barefoot now moves in silent tires, even the ground begins to whisper their name. It started like a rumor, soft at first, then louder. At first, just one voice near the palm wine joint. Then see that girl, Zilora, you remember her? The one all of man they treat like stranger. I hear say she don't make am. A second voice, leaning on a bamboo stick and suspicion, joined in. Make am how? Eh? No be Okashiko. Shey she no dey do house girl work again? The men nodded. The sun was hot, their mouths were dry, and there is nothing more tempting to a tired tongue than half-cooked gossip. That evening, in another corner of Ogidiane, two women peeling cassava under a mango tree passed on the flame. You hear this Laura gist? My sister, na true. I hear say she dey drive big jeep. That one wey no dey make noise, just dey hum like new generator. She dey do runs? Some say so, some say she meet one billionaire na him carry her come out. But wait oh, didn't they say she started small business with one man like that? My dear, nobody suffer reach that girl. Get as e be. And so, the two tails of Zelaya began to dance across Ogidiane like dust at Hamatan. One tail said she sold her body, that one lucky man saw her and wiped her tears with money. The other tail, quieter but more respected, said she and her husband built their empire brick by brick, sweat, sacrifice, strategy. But in the end, it didn't matter because both stories led to one truth. Zilora had made it.